Hello and welcome to a tutorial on how to make your own structure generator module pack modules, whatever you want to call them. This tutorial is very unplanned. I have no idea exactly how to go through this. I basically just recommend going into the text file that comes with the prefab pack and just reading that and hoping you understand the nonsense I've said. So, okay, basically, how to make a module for my KingCrabmaster's structure generator pack, whatever you want to call it, Crabchers, whatever. So obviously the first step is going to be, you want to make your structures. Here's the big old world that I have all of my structure parts in. The pieces of the flying islands, the mushroom biomes, all of the towers. There's a general thing you'll notice here is obviously the importance of using structure blocks. This is definitely going to be the big part of it. You're going to want to build it. You're going to want to make sure everywhere that, you don't want it filled with air. Like, for instance, interiors. Whoa, this save file is getting crusty. You might notice there, one second, actually, I should demonstrate. These cubes, you're going to want to make sure that, you put the air around it properly. That's an important thing to make sure it doesn't, look weird and doesn't spawn into the world stupidly. So, just that's just a thing I just want to, I don't know, if you've ever used structure blocks, you know what, you know what's going on. If you haven't used structure blocks, I recommend learning a bit about them. Just save them properly. This will go into the generated file in the world folder. The same folder where you'll put the data packs in to begin with. You can find that folder if you watch the tutorial on how to install these things. Either way, yeah, get all your parts, get an idea for what you're generating. Maybe use command blocks to test things out. It is, however, a data pack, so you're going to want to, Notepad works for editing McFunction files, but, I recommend Notepad++. Either way, here, let me just open a folder real quick. There we go. Where is the prefab? Okay, so what I recommend for making your own is to download the prefab file. The prefab file, it's like my own packs, but it's just basically empty. It's, it's got all this useful information in it. Here, let me make this a little larger. Important thing, rename this. I've got it named, KrabMaster Module Prefab. If your name is Gym Games or whatever, you know what? Dungeon Master. I'm just gonna say, if you're a D&D Dungeon Master and that's for some reason your username, use your initials, whatever, module, and let's say you're making an ice castle. So, well, okay. See, that's the thing. Are you making your structure pack for just one structure? Are you making it for a bunch? That just theme the name based on that. Let's just assume you're just making an ice castle. There you go. That's the name. Make sure this is a decent name, and also I recommend just giving the main folder a name that's descriptive, but never alphabetically above this because it has to load in order. This tutorial, it's a lot better to just read this text file. It's a lot more useful. Even if you watch this video, I recommend going through the tutorial because the text tutorial has a lot of tips that I just don't even know how I'm gonna start talking about in this. Dear goodness, I feel like this music is taking over my brain. Okay, so once you've got your structure files, save them into this folder. You can delete all of this, that's fine. And okay, here's where making your own pack is a little dumb. So there's all these files, all of these files. You're gonna need to go in And you're gonna need to modify these. Give me 1 second. Let me grab a window, I guess. So all of these spots where it says the prefab bit, you're gonna have to go through each one of these files and just change that. Man, I hope that's like visible at 720p. Dear goodness, why is it so small? Actually, wait, I can, yeah, there we go. Now, oh, well, that's not that much better. There you go. Now you should be able to see. Yeah, so basically, all these bits where it says prefab, just, you know, go and copy paste your name, replace it. This isn't necessary. This is basically this whole bit. It's a binary tree, I guess is what this term would be, where basically it divides up the biomes. Because, like, let's say you make a pack where you use every single biome. There are 43 biomes compatible in this pack. That means if you got a complex pack like that, it's gonna need to run at least 43 commands. By using a binary tree where it divides up the values, it's only gonna use about 16 commands by comparison. This is for efficiency. It's obnoxious, but it's necessary. Okay, either way, once you go through and do that obnoxious thing, that's then where you make your own structure. Now, in the prefab, there's a couple things. There's a base requirements. This is a couple commands that you're going to need to use. Now, I say you're going to need to use it. This one is just recommended if your structure is a little large, that it might not fit in a chunk, so it might not load into the loaded chunks properly. That's kind of not entirely necessary if you're spawning something small, but if you're spawning something big, I recommend using it. Now, you might be a little worried by looking at force load, because force load will keep a chunk loaded forever. However, it's not that bad because in my pack, it basically purges all the force loaded chunks the next frame. So it doesn't actually really do much to performance. It just makes sure the chunks are loaded so your structure can load into them. So besides that, the other required thing, I consider it required just because it's a little obnoxious if you don't use it. I recommend having a kill command near the end of your thing, because when your structure spawns in, if it's spawning in around like grass or snow or whatever, well, I don't think snow, but grass and whatnot, a bunch of seeds are gonna spew everywhere because tall grass does not delete well in Minecraft, so all of that stuff gets destroyed. It spews items everywhere. Yeah, this is just to clear out all of that. And then the last one is it sets random to a value above what the randomizer randomizes between. This is just so that two structures won't spawn on top of each other. Basically, in a lot of packs, let me see if I can't grab a good example here real quick. If I go into biomes, basically there's this biome list thing. Oh gosh, I need to delete that, don't I? Oops, sorry, I just realized this line is ignore this. Either way, so yeah, if there's two structures spawning in a biome, it'll randomize between them, but if the structure itself does any randomization, then it'll occasionally have a chance where it'll spawn the one and then it'll spawn the other on top. That is not a good thing, so that's why you just want to have that randomizer at the end, just to make sure things don't explode. Either way, here, let me open Tower Grass. This is one of my packs. Let me just make sure. Let's get rid of word wrap real quick, because it's kind of obnoxious. Oops, did I just zoom in more? So, okay, this is a basic tower. This is the grassy tower in my pack. I used it to give some examples here, and basically the basics of how this works is just this line here where it'll fill a structure block with all the important information, such as where it's centered and all that, and then afterward it'll place down a redstone block, and then it'll make sure to fill in the spot so that the structure block and redstone block are guaranteed destroyed. I do some extra randomization here for example, you'll notice the integrity values are randomize between multiple. You can actually randomize this by how many as you want. Just keep in mind, the more commands, the less efficiency. You'll notice I run one of my randomizers here, and then I grab the random value here. But you might notice I actually run 2 randomizers. This is so, like, if I go back to Minecraft real quick, you might notice I have 2 versions of each of my things. One that's, kind of normal, one that's massively degraded. The idea behind this, as you might gather, is that this is the normal one, and this is the extras. And if I go back to that notepad, 1 second, sorry. Yeah, you'll notice that this first line that uses random 1 is doing the main one, and this is doing the extras one, and the extras one is at a varying amount of integrity, so it'll overlay it on top of the other one and give it more details. This is just something I do that I like to do. It's not really required, it's just something I recommend. I guess another thing, so if you want randomized positions for mobs and loot, there's I've got entities in my structures that I save with it. What's a good one to see this? I guess this one would be really good. So if I press F3 and B, yeah, you'll see I use area effect clouds. These would be mob spawn locations, and I think these ones are chests that I have in the corner and stuff. More of them up here. So I place these around. This is a convenient way to have consistent spawn locations for your loot and chests, or your chests and your mobs, because these towers spawn in a static location. However, these ones I actually rotate around a pivot, so like this will be spawning this way, it'll be spawning this way, it'll be spawning that way, it'll be spawning that way. If you're rotating them like that, then you're definitely going to want to have these entities inside them, because if you're spawning your loot at hard locations, like let's say, okay, so it's here, so that's be 1, 2, 3, 4, like, okay, so like I want to spawn a mob 4, 4, so that would be like around here it would spawn, but if it rotates, it's still spawning here, but this block, like the relative position of this block is like more over here because of the way the pivot of the building rotation is. You don't want that. You don't want like mobs spawning outside your buildings or chests spawning outside your buildings. It would be a lot of commands to sync it up. So by executing it relative to the position of an entity that's in the building, so you see here it's picking a random chest location and then it's spawning a chest there. By doing that, you can rotate your buildings and randomize their positions a bit and not have to worry about you just don't have to worry about the locations. It's the same way with the mobs here. Though mobs, I have a slightly more complex randomizer system. Let me open that up for that. Yeah, it'll go through the random values. It'll remove a value and then it does it again, basically, just kind of on a repeat. Whoops, I just realized this is an outdated line too. None of this will be inaccurate in the release build. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's, I'm recording this video before I've released this. It's fine. Either way, yeah, so that's, yeah, you don't technically have to use any of my prefabs for this. It's just a lot of good code that I've put together over time. Like, for instance, here's the how it generates the base underneath of it, and it's, it's filling in, it's detecting if it filled anything. If it did, it'll run the next line. And again, I need to, yeah, but these will just say prefab next time, or when you download this. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so, you know, the only other prefab here is a, oops, nope, wrong one. This one has a lot of stuff in it. Oh, whoa, what are you doing, computer? You know, I think, is this one? Yeah, this one actually is one that shows you it with rotation. So this is actually a good example of, like, why it's important, because it spawns a villager inside this house, and if the villager was outside the house, it might be weird, like he might fall off a cliff, who knows. But this one also is interesting because it shows that you can actually run more parts off the side of it, and this is actually technically a procedural house in a way, because, can I find a, 1 second. Let me actually show this one in action if I can. See if I can find a good save. You know what? I just used this, so this should be a good one for it. Can I just... I'm in the middle of an ocean. Oh, wonderful. 1 second. Yeah. Oh, a flower biome. That's nice. Doot. Let me function. I don't know if this is going to work right. No, actually, this isn't going to work right. Okay, execute at E type equals armor stand at self. Second, I actually typed this wrong. Run function megamix. Oops, structures lone house. And now that I've got the command written, let's just toss down one of these bad boys. Oh, I got diamond boxes on still. And you'll see it spawned like a little tower, a campfire nearby, a little farm bit, you know, all in, you know, random little positions. I can just, you know, repeatedly do this for no good reason. Until it's in the ocean. This isn't exactly a village, but I don't know why I got a little overzealous and just started spawning them. But as you could tell, the locations of all this stuff was randomized in different positions nearby it. And in general, this is a good example of, you know, you can have parts that spawn nearby, and then those run their own commands. So, like, for instance, the small campfire here, it'll run a couple randomizing for teleports. It'll use my land structure function, which you can use these too, which will get it to the ground. And then from there, it spawns it in, and, you know, it's done doing what it's doing. One thing you can definitely do is you can go into my other packs, like Megamix, for instance, has got all my stuff, so you can just kind of go in, go to the functions, go to the structures, and, like, tear apart existing, like, dungeons and stuff. For instance, like, I've got Deep Dungeon here, where you'll notice it's in the folder. I know I'm not showing this, but yeah, in the folder you'll find Deep Dungeon, and then you'll find a subfolder for more Deep Dungeon stuff. And this one's actually a very complicated dungeon technically, because while it is mostly just randomly picking directions to go, it actually up here you'll notice it sets a depth value to 0, then it sets a randomizer, then from that randomizer it sets the depth value to that based on a divided value. It, you know, it does some math. And this basically sets a sort of difficulty level, so, like, well, not difficulty, but, like, it'll decide how big the dungeon gets. So it's a minimum of 3 floors deep and a maximum of 6 floors deep. And so from there, it actually will take the number of floors deep it is and actually use that to decide difficulty and stuff, which I think I can actually... Here, let me put that down... Deep Dungeon. Yeah, so this is a very... Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done this next to the ocean. Effect, give Crabmaster night vision. Yeah, so you'll definitely notice, you know, it goes down. It gets a little broken up here because it won't spawn overlapping water. I had to do that for preventing some other issues, which I just realized. This is another one of my dungeons. It's completely unrelated to this one. Ah, 1 second. Here, let me find another place to do this, because this isn't actually a good spot for it in this world. Yeah, this should be a good location. Give me a second. I think that other armor stand is probably, out of the spawn radius. Boom. This was a terrible location. Why am I like this? Yeah, that is a much better example of this dungeon. So yeah, it actually has a difficulty increase system where the further down, the further along it goes, the more loot will spawn and the more mob spawners will spawn until it gets to the final room at the bottom. So yeah, this is a good dungeon to pick apart if you want to see like how to use command blocks to add like difficulty increases to your dungeons, or like how to spawn in random directions and stuff like that. Let me spawn one more of these. You can also pick apart the flying islands and stuff. That's another good one to, like, well, actually, I think the caves, like the lava cave and the lava cave and the crud, what is it? The mushroom cave are also good examples to pick apart, just because those ones, they work a little differently than the flying ones, and you know, randomized caves are, I'd imagine, a very appealing thing to be able to add, considering Minecraft's caves are arguably a little boring. This is actually really cool. It's like a bridge. But, yeah, so you'll notice this first floor doesn't actually have anything. The second floor has, like, a few things. This isn't really a floor. Oh, man, this is a rip-off dungeon, almost. I mean, it's not hard, so it's, you know, you get a lot of loot. See, that? Yeah, this floor has a lot more loot. I accidentally spawned it intersecting with another dungeon. Ignore that. You know, the final floor always has a lot more mobs. I actually plan on making a lot more complicated dungeons than these. Gosh, this is why I find this so cool. Just having like stuff like this. I'm gonna grab a screenshot of that. I'm gonna get rid of bounding boxes and then grab a screenshot of that. Wrong button. There we go. Nope, nope. There we go. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this video's gone on way too long. I think I've explained the gist of it. Okay, so, oh, there is one thing I did forget to explain. Let me go back to the prefab for you real quick. Here, let me actually open that back up. Where'd it go? What did I do with the prefab? Where is my prefab? I feel like I deleted the prefab. What the heck? Oh, I renamed it Ice Castle. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so back in functions, the one thing I forgot to explain is all of these biome things in the folder. That's the wrong thing. It was like from my other tutorial. Yeah, all of these biome, you are gonna have to modify all of them. So like, here we have stone, for instance. You're going to want to change this to the name of your folder from earlier that I mentioned. And also, you're going to want to, like, okay, if we're spawning in the stone biome, you know, comment that out. Change this to, like, you know, lone house is actually, you know, and I think it's like, I think that was the name I gave the folder. So it's like, you change it like that for every single one. Now, technically, you don't have to change every single one, now that I think about it. So, like, for instance, it's your pack's called Ice Castle. You're not going to be spawning in the Red Desert, for instance. You don't have to modify this, because this one will just straight up re-roll which gives it a chance for another pack to spawn something instead of yours. Yeah, you don't have to worry about this. You only have to modify it for the biomes that you're using. I think that's the last thing I almost forgot to say. Yeah, this is a very messy video, but I really don't know, like, the best way to explain how to do this, because every pack is going to be different. Unless you're just spawning basic houses or basic towers, like a lot of my stuff is, you're going to just need to use the basic prefab stuff. You're going to need to just rewrite a couple things. I did forget one thing to mention, actually. All of these bits here, where it's like the prefab name, you're going to want to change all of those to your pack name. Just make sure, like, to note down all that stuff. I think actually also, like, here, up here, if you're modifying the, you know, the actual structure block, you're going to want to make sure to make it your pack name and the structure you're spawning. Just keep those things in mind while you're doing it. But yeah, that's basically the steps. Rename your pack, rename a couple lines of code. It's all command block code. Anything you can do with commands, you can do in here. Just keep that in mind. So the sky is the limit in that regard. Yeah. Make your structure, put your structure in, either use the prefab, tear apart, make whatever code you want. You can delete everything and just, like, or just go with the base requirements and nothing more. So, like, I guess in that case, it's like, oh, you know, basically the simplest thing you could create is technically you could fill, you know, a 15 high, or I guess that's 16 high pillar of Minecraft stone. This is literally a valid structure you can spawn with this pack. This is a completely valid level of complexity. But you can also have something like my my dungeon from earlier, which if I go to that dungeon real quick, here, let me make it so you can see the folder. If I go to my dungeon, you know, it's a bunch of files, it's a bunch of code. It's a lot going on. Every file has some, I mean, a lot of the files are basically repeats with some variations, but, like, you know, the complexity you can do is as much as you want. Actually, which folder here is the most complex? See, that one's not much. I'm trying to remember. This is one I haven't worked on yet, so that one will probably become the most complex. Oh, you know what? Mush Cave. Mush Cave is probably the most complex one, just because, you know, it goes different directions, it spawns different plants, it spawns all kinds of things. Now, this one's only complex because there's a lot of efficiency gains you can do. Like, for instance, here, so it picks, okay, so it picks between a number for what it wants to spawn. Oh, one second. Yeah, there we go. It picks between a number for what it wants to spawn, and then from there, you know, between another set of numbers, it'll pick between, this is another binary tree thing. So, like, instead of running, so this is 5 commands, and then this is 5. So this would be 10 commands. So if it just ran straight from this, it would be to a combined version of those two files, it would be 10 commands it would have to go through. Now, by having the binary tree set up where it splits it between 2 and then goes into here, that's only 7 commands that it has to run by comparison. So you get an efficiency gain of 3 commands every time it does this. And it's going to be doing this like a dozen times, so, like, yeah, you're getting a lot of efficiency gains here. That's the kind of stuff that, if you can keep that in mind, if you can be clever and use the command blocks to the fullest extent, you can make something that's both very complex and very efficient. And yeah, I mean, there's so many other things I could technically cover in this tutorial, but this has gotten to be like 30 minutes long. I don't even know if, like, anybody's, like, watched all the way through. I hope some of this is helpful. Honestly, it takes like 5 minutes to read the basic tutorial text file that comes with the pack and, like, go through all of the tips and tricks files. So I don't know why you would watched this all the way through. I feel like I've wasted all of your time, but either way, that's the tutorial. That's as many little tricks and tips as I can provide off the top of my head. I didn't plan this through. Hopefully this was helpful. I hope you can make good packs. Anyway, see you in another video. Goodbye.